What up, Creekside Youth? It's your boy back at it again. Another soul study coming your way. We've been talking about the needs of your soul because your soul can be healthy, it can be unhealthy, just like a body. And so it requires some certain things to be healthy, and we're in a season right now where your soul is going to have the propensity to be extremely unhealthy. And that's going to be because your rhythms are thrown off, your normal disciplines are thrown off, fill in the blank, right? So everything's been disrupted, so now you're going to have the propensity for your soul to be unhealthy versus being healthy. So we've been looking at some things that your soul needs. So we first started looking at how your soul needs rest. And we spent the first few weeks of our soul study looking at what it looks like to rest emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And then just this last week, we started talking about what it looks like for your soul to also need responsibility. Your soul doesn't just need rest, but it needs responsibility, which sometimes those feel competing. And so last week we started by talking about what it looks like to take responsibility emotionally, take responsibility for your own emotions, for your own feelings, that it's your job to vocalize them, it's your job to put them into words, it's your job to care for them, and it's your job to make sure that they don't get unleashed on other people without you understanding them. We talked about what it looks like to sit up on top of that hillside, looking over your emotions like a harbor, watching the ships come in and out, the emotions come in and out, and saying like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. And our propensity is to run and get carried away by the emotion, but instead we talked about the value in sitting and observing our emotions, being aware of them, being aware of what's caused them to come in and out of the harbor, but not getting swept away in them, because our emotions are our responsibility. We talked about how emotions work and all those kind of things. So if you want, you can obviously check that out. That's from last week. So we're going to continue in what it looks like to be responsible. But this time we're going to look at what it looks like to be responsible physically, because we've been taking these traits of what a healthy soul looks like and breaking them down into emotional, physical, and spiritual categories. So now that we're moving into this physical category for what does it look like to be physically responsible. Remember, when we're talking about responsibility, because we're going back to the garden, right? We're going back to the Garden of Eden, which is where the soul study has begun, because that's where God sets up the perfect environment for human beings to thrive, right? And in our very first soul study, we extracted from the Garden of Eden, we looked at how it's completely true in the Garden of Eden that God sets up these four things. He sets up the fact that the garden is a place where Adam rests in him, first, right? There's rest for Adam's soul in who God is, in his ability to provide the garden for Adam. And then God gives Adam the responsibility of taking care of the garden. So that's a second need of our souls. Our souls need some degree of responsibility for something, and we'll break that down as to why in a second. Then we see God place this tree in the Garden of Eden that Adam's not supposed to eat from, because your soul doesn't just need rest and responsibility, it actually needs restraint. It needs to be able to say, I can, but I shouldn't, and I won't. And so that's what the tree is there for. And then Adam's alone, and God says, this isn't good. And then he gives him Eve, because Adam's soul also needs relationship. So we're looking at each of these things. We're here on responsibility. And God did not give Adam the responsibility of caring for the garden because he needed to keep Adam busy. He didn't do it because he's mean. He didn't do it because he's malicious. He didn't do it because he just wants to see Adam work hard. And here's the thing. God doesn't need you to work. God doesn't need anything from you. God's completely sufficient all on his own. He doesn't need any work or action or deeds from you because he's completely sufficient. He's so powerful. You need other people to work and do things for you because you're not sufficient. But God is so sufficient, he doesn't need a thing from you. But he gives you responsibility, and it's not because he needs you to be responsible, it's because you need to be responsible. Your soul needs it. Your soul craves responsibility. And it's not meaningless responsibility. And last week we talked about how this responsibility isn't like your dream job. That's not the responsibility that your soul craves. That's what we think. We think if I get this dream position, if I get this dream chore, if I get this dream whatever, right? Like fill in the blank. If I get this dream responsibility, then I will be responsible and I will love being responsible. But until I get the thing that I'm holding out for, until I get the assignment that I'm holding out for, until I get the project that I'm holding out for, until I get the job that I'm holding out for, I'm not going to be responsible. I'm going to enjoy my time not having to be responsible until I have something that I want to be responsible for. But see, responsibility in how it feeds your soul isn't based around the job or the role that you have. That actually has very little to do with how it feeds your soul being healthy. But responsibility has everything to do with you giving your very best to whatever's in front of you, no matter how small the job is. That's what actually feeds your soul. See, Adam wasn't fed in the health of his soul by the fact that he was a gardener, right? Like caring for the garden wasn't like the magical, like, I finally found the college that I was supposed to go to. I finally found the vocation I was called to. I was meant to be a gardener, and I've been fulfilled ever since. There wasn't anything magical in him being designed to be a gardener. That wasn't it. It's just that he gave his best to being a gardener. Did you know that the Garden of Eden is actually as big as what we would mark off as a national forest now? Or like a national park. Generally, when we think of the Garden of Eden, we think of like a small garden in your backyard and it's pretty confined. No, Adam could walk this thing for days. It's huge, the Garden of Eden is. And so it takes a lot of work to care for this garden, to maintain it, and to make sure that everything's working properly. And here's the thing. Adam thrived in this. His soul was fed in this because he gave his very best. Not because the role was perfect, not because it was something he wanted to be responsible for, but because he gave his best to what was in front of him. So the question then becomes, what can you give? What can you give your best to? If that's something, giving your best, the act of giving your best is going to create in you a healthy soul. We looked at what it looks like to give your best emotionally, but now we're talking physically. We're talking about the things that you don't want to do. We're talking about the things that are right in front of you, the chores that you're supposed to be doing, right? The chores that you have each and every day, especially now that you're home all the time, that your family's set before you. You've got those chores. You're doing school online, right? You're doing school online, and trust me, as somebody who has taken classes online, I know that when you do school online, it is so much easier to check out. It's so much easier to not care. It's so much easier to just blow through it and not give your best to it, right? So you've got chores, you've got school that's happening online. And then you have anything additional on top of that that might be a project that you want to do. It might be some art stuff that you're working on. It might be some goals that you have. Maybe you've made a bucket list for quarantine or whatever it is, right? And here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm certain that you have been finding ways to chillax plenty over quarantine so far. I'm certain of it. You're probably playing board games, playing video games, watching plenty of Netflix, fill in the blank, right? Like napping a ton, like put in whatever you want to in that blank. And I'm sure for the first couple weeks of quarantine, that felt really good. Like, oh, I have so much more time to take naps now. I have so much more time to binge video games and Netflix and fill in the blank. I have so much more time to do all this stuff, and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it, right? But I bet 3 or 4 weeks in now, you don't enjoy it as much as you used to. You don't enjoy it as much as you did those first couple weeks. That now you're running out of shows that you're interested in. Or now you're running out of interest in that video game. It's not fulfilling. It's not exciting. Now naps don't feel restful. They feel like you're more tired and more exhausted than you were when you first laid down. And can I tell you, it's not because of those things. It's not that those things have changed. They're still the same things that were interesting and exciting to you initially. What's changed is you're not giving your best to anything. See, chilling out and relaxing only feels great when you've given your best to something. That's the secret. That's the secret. If you just stay inside and play video games and tune out and binge Netflix and just chillax all day long, it doesn't feel good. You feel nasty. You feel gross. And you can do it maybe for a day and it feels great, and then the next day it doesn't feel good anymore. Because checking out, taking a vacation from all responsibility in this season right now, if you're going to take a vacation from all responsibility in this season right now, you will not be fulfilled. You will not be healthy. Your soul will feel empty. Your soul will become increasingly unhealthy. So what you got to do if you want to be able to enjoy those things that you have time to enjoy, if you want to be able to enjoy relaxing, if you want to be able to enjoy your TV and your video games and whatever else you've been binging and taking tons of in, then what you have to do is you have to give your best to some things. You have to give your best to some things. How can you give your best to your chores? How can you do them better than you've done them? Can you do them more efficiently? Can you be more on top of them? Can you do them before you're even asked to do them? What would it look like to give your best to your schoolwork? I'm not talking about straight A perfection. I'm talking about what's your best. Best varies person to person, right? You might not be a great writer of essays, but you're good at math. You might suck at math, but you're really good at writing, right? So some things you're going to struggle in, and that's okay. Give your best at struggling. But the things that you're capable in, don't relax on those things. Don't just sit back and act like nothing's going on or like you can just take a vacation right now from responsibility. It's time to lean in and to give your best. That's where you're going to feel fulfilled. That's where you're going to feel satisfied, right? That's why in the Bible, it's penned, do everything as though you're doing it for the Lord, not because the Lord needs you to be doing things. That's not what he needs. He needs nothing from you. But because the Lord knows that it is to your benefit, it's to your betterment, that if you give all you have to the tasks in front of you, you will be better for it. You'll be fulfilled. You'll be satisfied because it fills a longing in your soul. How can you give your best? How can you give your best this week? What can you give your best to at school? What kind of chores can you give your best to? What kind of projects and bucket lists can you give your best to? How can you improve? How can you give your best this week? It's not about being perfect. There's plenty of grace. It's about giving your best. And can I tell you, if you're shorting yourself in this season, if you're taking a vacation from responsibility, you are missing out. You will not be better for taking a vacation. You will not enjoy taking a vacation from responsibility by the end of this quarantine. You'll feel like a disaster. What you need to do instead is not take a vacation from responsibility, but lean into giving your best to the things physically in front of you. I love you guys so much. Looking forward to hanging out tonight. It's going to be good. I'll see you soon.